This man, a strong teenager, had his legs taken away from him as a child due to illness. However, at the age of 18, a great opportunity arose. This guy has a cheater ability called absolute intimidation. Anyone who loses to him even once becomes his ward. "Hey you bastard," suddenly shouted a girl who approached the market stall. Holding a metal bat on her shoulder, she said that her boss was paralyzed because of the fruit the merchant sold him. In that case, the merchant will have to explain himself well today. Cheng Xinyan is the childhood friend of the guy in the wheelchair behind her. She has a pretty simple minsid and crazy fighting skills. It's all thanks to her. She is the one who makes the boy's plans come true. And now he has tons of friends. There are 3 places where the fruit shops are located: Ranok to the west, Zaijiao City to the east, and the emergency abandonment to the south. It was at the last one that the battlefield broke out. It all starts when a guy gets crossed up in the affairs of a family in the south. This fight should be the key to his gang's quest to take over the neighborhood. The vendor sitting on the steps asked irritably if these youngsters had come here just to shit. How could their limbs be paralyzed from eating the fruit? Exhaling cigarette smoke, the man pointed out that these brats hadn't even been around when he was in business. He demanded the kids get out of here because the delivery truck would be here soon. When the merchant noticed that the uninvited guests were not going to leave, he got to his feet and, clenching his fists in anger, advised the boys not to ask for a fight with him. However, upon hearing this, the guy sitting in the wheelchair only laughed. Does this dude really think he scared him with that? At the same second, realizing that a fight was inevitable, the 2 gangs decided to clash in a fierce melee. But to the merchant's surprise, these brats had no thoughts of fighting his men. After running up to his shop, the bandits just started stealing all the fruits and vegetables on the shelves. After putting everything in crates and bags, they simply took off and fled the scene in a hurry. Not realizing what had just happened, the shopkeeper's charges stood staring dumbfoundedly at the empty counter for some time. It's all gone," the merchant shouted in panic when he saw that his goods had disappeared. At the same moment, the angry man ordered his men to chase after the little bastards. What is this nonsense? Who would rob a fruit stand and rob a fruit shop in such a brazen manner? Suddenly the seller noticed behind him a guy in a wheelchair, to whom a girl with a bat was handing some documents. After praising his friend for a job well done, the young man showed the paper to the desperate merchant with a creepy smile and explained that he had actually come here for this. Seeing the document in his hands, the dumbfounded man realized that this kid had stolen his trade license from him. While the peddler was thinking about it, the guy had already managed to call the city department and informed there that he had discovered an illegal outlet at the intersection. At that very second, a police unit arrived at the scene. This is a victory. Everything is going according to this young man's plan. Meanwhile, a delivery truck is traveling down West Street. The girl in the passenger seat worriedly told Takumi's brother that it looked like they were overweight. With a cigarette in his teeth, the man behind the wheel reassured Natsuki that no one would check them. But at that moment, he shockingly noticed that a police car passing in the oncoming lane suddenly turned on its blinker. Natsuki shouted to her brother in a panic that the cops were ahead. Takumi, in turn, gripped the steering wheel with all his might. Shit, what the hell is wrong with today? In that case, the man decides to turn into the alley. No one ever patrols that place. When the frightened girl asked her brother how he was going to turn at such an angle at such tremendous speed, Takumi asked his sister if she had ever heard of drifting. Well, she's going to see it today. At the same moment, the driver jerked the handbrake and spun the steering wheel several times at breakneck speed. That's when the multi-ton truck burning rubber turned into the alley. A guy in a wheelchair who heard a strange noise behind him turned around in surprise. When he noticed that someone was in their way, a dazed Takumi clutched the steering wheel. Grabbing onto her brother, a frightened Natsuki yelled at him to steer to the side faster. What the hell? The young man yelled when he saw a multi-ton truck coming at him at full speed. After shouting that he couldn't be killed that easily, the guy made the decision to use his secret 20-year-old technique with the intimidating name of Lone Man's Hand Wheel Speed. However, when he moved 5 centimeters, his secret technique was brutally crushed by an apple lying on the ground. The wheel of his wheelchair just bumped into the unfortunate fruit. It was in that desperate moment that the boy remembered something very important. The falling speed of a sakura leaf is 5 centimeters per second. At the same instant, the kun truck once again executed divine punishment, hitting the young man to death. Holy shit, if he wasn't crippled, he'd be alive for sure. Suddenly, seeing strange numbers in front of him, the guy heard the voice of the system. Information has been received, departure to the meta-universe, successful. Immediately after these words, the young man woke up on a bed unknown to him. You're awake, what a successful death. Only took a couple seconds, pronounced the strangely dressed woman staring at him. Abruptly jumping off the bed, the guy yelled in a daze, asking who she was. But at that moment he noticed something unusual. For the first time in his life, he could move his legs. The woman standing next to him immediately remarked that it was natural. In spirit form, the boy's physical shell couldn't affect him. Still not understanding what was going on, the young man pointed his finger at the girl and demanded that she stop talking and tell him who she was. With an irritated snap of her fingers, the woman asked the guy not to point his finger at people like that. It's actually very rude. Seeing his hand begin to dissolve, the young man screamed in panic, asking where his hand had gone. What did she do to him? Who the hell is she? Calling the boy Chun, the woman introduced herself as the editor-in-chief, the goddess creator of Nana, and she could easily kill him. Now listen, you're a comic hero who just died. Your previous world medits end the same way, the goddess pronounced, pointing a finger at Chun. Looking at her in surprise, the boy asked why she had called him a comic hero. Laughing, the editor-in-chief asked what else he should have been. Did the young man really think he was the main character in reality? And anyway, where in the normal world would readers come from? The angry Chun yelled at the woman to stop mocking him. He would soon rule the world and reach the very top. How can he die like this? Laughing, the goddess asked the young man to calm down. The strong are destined to die. It's like the Achilles' heel of Greek tragedy. And since the guy wants to reach the top so badly, in that case, the goddess might give him a chance to reincarnate. Reincarnate? Can she really let him be reborn? Then the woman reminded him that she was a goddess, not just anyone. Of course she could easily do that. In that case, the delighted Chun asked the editor to grant him a healthy and flexible body, or better yet, if he could regenerate his limbs even if they were broken. The guy doesn't want to be disabled anymore. The goddess agreed to the terms after thinking about them for a while. Imagining how strong and handsome he would become, the young man realized that this time nothing would stop him from ruling the world. He would reach the very heights. You seem to be impatient. Then I'm sending you away. When you appear in the new world, I believe you will be able to survive as well as reach the top. Your spirit will be able to live indefinitely. The editor who said goodbye to him spoke out, extending her hand forward. Feeling his body begin to dissolve, the boy asked the goddess to wait a little longer. He still had one more request to make. I'm not done talking yet. Don't you understand humanly? Chun yelled irritably before disappearing completely. The last thing he heard from the editor-in-chief was a warning that if the guy died here, he would be finished for good. When he heard the gurgling of water, he realized that he was at the bottom of the sea. Would he drown immediately after rebirth? However, at that very second, he noticed something strange. Now the guy can breathe underwater, but he also feels kind of weird. Noticing the brightly colored water crystals in front of him, Chun decided to get a little closer. These crystals appeared so pure that he could even use them as a mirror. When he looked at his reflection, he realized that he had turned into a squid. How dare that thing do this to him? This is not the limb restoration he was talking about, damn it. After trying to figure out how to walk, the young man realized that he first needed to get used to this body first. Puzzled, the boy immediately tried to remember how aquarium squids moved. Exactly. They relied on the body, contracting and stretching their limbs. In the end, such a technique actually worked. Chun could now move freely on the bottom. At that moment, a huge school of fish swam past the guy, pulling him with it. Looking at it perplexed, the squid cannot understand what is happening and why these fish are swimming so fast. Looking in the direction of the joint's movement, the young man saw something truly intimidating. When he spotted a huge sperm whale sucking in hundreds of fish, the system immediately alerted Chun that the favorite food of these creatures was squid. That's when the dumbfounded guy realized that the favorite food of this huge monster is him. I.e., you. Suddenly, stammering, the sperm whale uttered. After calming down, the squid realized that he understood this monster's speech, and now they could talk to each other in peace. It looked like they still had a chance to come to an agreement. "I'll eat you," the creature howled, opening its mouth even wider. Seeing this gruesome picture, Chun shouted in fear why this sperm whale was such a moron. Flying into the monster's mouth at full speed, the guy cried out in tears. Didn't he have any special abilities at all? Wasn't he reborn? At that moment, an unknown voice informed the young man that he still hadn't activated the full system. That was why he could only use the squid's initial skills. Flexible arms and legs, the limbs have well-developed muscles and powerful absorption, yet are fully adapted to swimming. The young man can also use an ink jet to confuse his enemies and escape. Hearing this, Chun made the decision to shoot the sperm whale with ink to try to escape. In the same second, the squid turned around and emptied his entire ink pouch directly into his opponent's face. However, the system reported that since the size difference was too large, this attack was completely useless. As the dazed guy flew into the sperm whale's mouth, he realized he was screwed. After which, the monster immediately slammed its mouth shut, devouring the squid. 10 minutes later, the sperm whale continues to drift alone in the ocean, trying to hold on to the tongue of the monster that ate him with the help of its suction cups on its tentacles. Chun screams hysterically. He, a man capable of reaching the top while sitting in a wheelchair. He can't just die at the very beginning. After a while, the tense guy felt his energy almost running out. This was the end of him. As soon as he thought about it, the young man was immediately washed away by a strong stream of water, hitting him right in the face. To the squid's surprise, it began to rise up with the water, instead of falling into the stomach of this huge creature. When Chun looked back, he realized that it was because of the monster's nostrils. That makes sense now. The guy is running out of energy due to lack of oxygen. But the sperm whale was no exception. The creature was about to surface to breathe air. "Don't even dream about it. I won't let you. We'll see who dies first," shouted the angry young man, this time not resisting the flow. When he swam up to the nostril, he immediately plugged it with his body. Due to this action, the sperm whale's only airway was blocked, causing the monster to lose the ability to breathe. In the same instant, a huge panicked creature leaped out of the water several meters into the air. It began convulsing, trying to free its airway. However, several minutes have passed, and the sperm whale has still failed to do so. The squid, dumbfounded at how the enemy had held on for so long, prayed with all his might that the fucking sperm whale would die. Why isn't he dead yet? If this goes on for even a minute longer, the guy will be the first to fall off. But thankfully, the very next second the creature stopped kicking. The huge sperm whale flipped helplessly onto its back, finally dead. Crawling out of his opponent's nostril, Chun, trying to hold back tears of despair, exhaled in relief. As he swam away to a safe distance, the boy remembered the words the goddess had recently told him. No matter how strong a creature is, it is destined to die because of the slightest flaw, such as the Achilles heel. Surprisingly, that thing even said something intelligent. At that moment, the young man noticed something surprising. A huge dead monster, several dozen meters in size, began to disappear right before his eyes. Looking at this incredible sight, the squid for some time could not understand what was happening here. An unknown force was coming from the dissolving sperm whale and going straight to Chunya. While the guy was thinking about it, the system congratulated him on successfully killing a sperm whale that was much stronger than him. The defeated enemy was converted into experience and injected into the body of the winner. Realizing that it was his reward, the young man asked the system if he could look at it. But unfortunately, due to incomplete system activation, Chun has no rights to view or use the rewards. All rewards have been temporarily blocked. Then the squid asked to be allowed to activate the system. How can he do that? Maybe it needs some kind of code. In turn, the system window told me that there was only one way to do it. It is necessary to conclude a spiritual contract with the Atlanteans. It is after this that the activation of the dual interaction system will become available. Looking into the depths of the impenetrable ocean, Chun can't figure out what this dual interaction system is, or who the Atlanteans are. What the hell is this? Unhappy with this state of affairs, the young man indignantly asks the system why it won't give him his reward. Deciding he didn't need to focus on it, the squid descended deeper, landing in a shallow coral reef. At this moment, a system window popped up in front of his face. A basic reward had been obtained. The class indicated that Chun was a teenage royal squid. His level had pumped from level 1 immediately to level 3. Also, the starting skill ink stream appeared to be improved. The recharge time was reduced from 5 minutes to 1. Noticing that the inkjet had improved, the guy decided to try it out. However, despite the system's promising message, the result was far less comforting. What the hell? The clout area is barely bigger. What's the point of this? They should have just given me some special effects. In the instant that the outraged squid was shrieking with anger, he heard strange sounds nearby. Could it be a new enemy? Come out! The boy shouted warily, looking at the small nearby cave. Immediately afterward, tentacles emerged from under the rocks. Coming out of hiding, the squid cubs said hello to Chun, explaining that they had just spotted him. Awkwardly looking at them, the boy greeted them back. The young man can't believe that first he became a squid himself, and now he is exchanging greetings with other squids. After running up to him, the boys explained that sperm whales were their natural enemies. What a tough guy Chun was to defeat such a monster. Shyly scratching the back of his head with his tentacle, the guy can't believe he's lived to be praised by seafood. By the way, since they can communicate, then the young man probably wouldn't have any trouble telling these dudes his current situation. Waving his tentacles, the squid tells the children that he has just gotten here and doesn't know much yet. Chun asks the children if they know where the Atlanteans are. Looking among themselves, the little squids said they didn't know who the Atlanteans were, and they had never even heard of them. Looking at them with shame, the guy realized that he was just a bunch of know-nothing idiots in front of him. The young man looked away and wondered what this place was all about. What do the locals do here every day? After showing him a beautiful piece, one of the squid children told him that they collect pearl shells and turn them in. Pearl shells? What the hell? In this world, squid need to look for shells. Is Chun reborn in the Catch the Sea simulator? Mr. Chuan, can you really help me get to Coral City? An unfamiliar voice suddenly came from behind. Hearing this, the frightened children immediately grabbed the uncomprehending boy and dragged him to their cave, explaining that they should hide as soon as possible. Taking cover in the rocks, one of the boys whispered to the young man that the rotten fish and rotten shrimp were coming. If these three didn't collect the right amount of shells, they would just nail them. The fat man with a huge cigar in his mouth is called Nyan Chuan, a sea catfish. The lobster with the gold tooth is called Xiaoguan. Both of these guys are level 4. Looking at this strange picture, Chun can't understand what the hell is going on. A sea catfish and a lobster. Stopping, the sea catfish asked his ward not to worry, explaining that he had solid connections. The head of the Coral City was his boss. While the lobster was praising Chuan, the squid watching from behind a rock noticed that these two were very similar to his subordinates in the past. Leaning over to Guan, the catfish said that since this was the first time he would be meeting Master Moon, he should prepare a gift. With a sly smile, the lobster said that he knew the rules perfectly well. The gift to Master Moon would be ready after the local tribute collection. What's going on? Is the seafood collecting tribute too? At this moment, Guan loudly struck a nearby rock with his claw, ordering those sitting underneath to stop hiding. Give me the money, now, yelled the angry lobster, looking at the frightened squid children. Holy shit, what kind of script am I writing? A lobster talking like a felon. Seriously, ridicule. Seafood blackmails other seafood. Actually, based on the conversation between these two, the key to Chun's strength growth must be stored in the Coral City. Grabbing the child by the tentacle with his claw, Guan shouted at the brat to give him his payment now. He asked them not to make him punch them in the face. Lifting the squid above the ground, the lobster asked where his monthly 300 shells were. Holding out a pearl shell to him in tears, the boy explained that he had only found one. Is it the shells that pay the tribute? Does it act as the local currency? The law of the jungle. Chun had seen it too many times in his past life. Realizing that there was nothing for him to do here, the guy decided that it was time for him to leave, as he still had his own things to do. When the extortionists saw the young man crawling out from under the rocks, they realized that they had not seen him here before. Is he a newcomer? Chun in turn just looked at them puzzled, not realizing how he had anything to do with all of this. In the next instant, the sea catfish slapped the boy in the face with its fin. Shuang immediately reminded the newcomer that he should greet them first, not just stand there. "Maybe I should rip off one of your tentacles so you learn the rules," the lobster said bloodthirstily as he stabbed with his claw. Not without difficulty, but Chun still managed to dodge this rather powerful attack. As the squid flies away from its enemies, it realizes that the size difference is too great, and therefore, the smartest choice is to find an escape route to begin with. However, Guan didn't like this behavior. "Is this brat trying to get away? Not so fast." Lobster immediately snapped out of his seat, pouncing on the dumbfounded guy. Without trying too hard, he caught up to the young man rather quickly and grabbed him firmly with his claws. While the lobster was holding him above the ground, the sea catfish explained to the brat that since he was planning to escape, his debt would be tripled. At this point, Chun shouted indignantly that first he was mysteriously transported here, then he was chased by a sperm whale, and now the seafood was trying to intimidate him. "Are you kidding me?" With a perplexed look at him, Chuan asked what the jerk was talking about. Mockingly looking at his victim, Guan explained that this dude started rambling after they scared him off. However, the squid wasn't going to just give up. He still had some trump cards up his sleeve. The very next second, the guy used an enhanced inkjet, thus blinding his opponents. With that, he managed to break free from the lobster's grasp. But it's not just the enemies who can't see anything in that ink. Chun sprayed too much, and now he can't even make out where he's gone. He still couldn't get used to the squid carcass, and so he can't see a damn thing in his own ink. As suddenly, a squid quietly approached from behind and grabbed the guy by his tentacle and asked him to follow him. After that, they climbed out of the huge inky cloud, leaving the blinded enemies behind. Running up to a small cave, the young man noticed that the boys were still sitting there. When the kids saw it, they asked Chun how he did it. "The guy is really good at spraying ink, but that's not the point. Right now, they need to run away from here as fast as possible while they can." However, Chun was definitely not happy with this arrangement. Run away? Is this some kind of joke? He had never run away before, repaying others for what he had done. At that moment, while the lobster and sea catfish were trying to see something in the ink that enveloped them, the squid leisurely approached them. "An eye for an eye, and I will repay double," Chun said confidently, raising his tentacle as if it were a finger. Immediately then, he began to survey his surroundings in an attempt to find a way to overpower such strong opponents. Suddenly he notices long seaweed growing nearby. That's when the young man had an idea. "Hey you bastards, how dare you resist?" shouted the angry Guan, still getting out of the inky cloud. At the same instant, he noticed a tentacle sticking out sloppily behind one of the low rocks. Laughing evilly, the lobster immediately lunged toward the squid hiding behind cover. "I'll have you sashimi, you brats," he yelled, peering behind a rock. But to his surprise, instead of tentacles, Guan saw only ordinary algae. While the lobster was staring at the plant, a bloodthirsty Chun swam up behind him. He immediately threw the seaweed around his opponent's neck, ordering the other squid to pull. Together grabbing the rope, the kids tied up the lobster without a second thought. Feeling that he couldn't even move, Guan dumbfoundedly looked at Chun and asked what the hell was going on here. Laughing, the guy mockingly advised his opponent to start by practicing before trying to intimidate the royal squid. Perhaps 100 years would be enough. But at that moment, the young man felt the seaweed at his back begin to pull him along as well. Seconds later, the lobster and squid came together in a passionate kiss. "Wait, you assholes, you've tied me up," Chun yelled at the children in panic as he tried to free himself from the seaweed. When they heard a strange shout behind them, they turned around in surprise and let go of the rope. "Why are you even blushing?" Chun shouted irritably when he noticed the lobster staring at him in embarrassment. But suddenly the guy had a brilliant idea. That's right, he's a squid, a mollusk. Realizing this, he did his best to relax all his muscles and free himself from the seaweed. After several attempts, he managed to do it. Laughing evilly, the squid immediately cradled the tearful Guan begging to be released. One down, they did it. But suddenly, unexpectedly, Chun grabbed the seaweed with his tentacles and, with a creepy look at the squid children, mockingly warned that this would be the case with anyone who decided to mess with him. With a horrified look at him, the boys asked what he meant. In a couple seconds, the three were already lying tied up with seaweed on the bottom. He breathed out a sigh of relief, glad that he'd finally managed to tie up those assholes. Now he wouldn't have to suffer from them anymore. While the young man was savoring his victory, the system alerted him that the body master had successfully captured 1 level 4 lobster and 3 level 1 squid. As a reward, the basic skill arm and leg enhancement can now be applied to objects that are 20 times heavier than one's own body. Looking at the system window, Chun can't believe that defeating an opponent is so easily determined. Just when the guy was wondering where he could use his new ability, a huge creature came up behind him. Seeing the horrible monster behind the young man, the lobster roared with happiness, and the squid trembled with fear. "Stop mooching. Behave yourselves," Chun irritably demanded while Chuan standing behind him bared his teeth. Sea catfish devour small prey silently, filtering the water currents. Still not noticing anything, Chun tries to figure out why he has such a bad feeling. The fact is that the nervous system of squid is incredibly developed and is able to pick up changes in the sea current. Surprised at the young man's evasive action, Chuan noted that it appeared that he was not an ordinary squid. That's why the sea catfish decided not to hold back his real strength. A level 4 sea catfish, special skill, sudden dash. As Chun looked tensely at his opponent, he realized that he was not good at head-to-head combat, but was used to working with his head. His childhood friend used to do the fighting. Remembering the style Chang Xinyan used during fights, Squid had an interesting idea in his mind. The guy remembered that he had recently received some reward. It was a good time to try out the reinforced arms and legs. After dodging another catfish attack, the young man activated the squid's level 4 skill arm and leg enhancement. Running up to the lobster lying on the ground, Chun grabbed its legs. While Guan was screaming hysterically, the squid swung it like a bat, imitating the fighting style of his childhood friend. "Seafood home run," Chun shouted, smacking the lobster into the sea catfish's face with all his might. With such a powerful blow, Chuan flew into the rock opposite, breaking through it with his teeth. The moment the sea catfish tries to poke its head out, asking what the devil, Chuan punched it. The lobster squid that came up to the lobster shakes it, checking to see if it's dead. Turning around to Chun in tears, Guan asked what else he wanted to do to him. He lifted his head and asked why the shrimp wasn't showing off anymore. Wasn't he behaving inappropriately before? The hour of reckoning has come. Feeling the squid rip off his claw, the dumbfounded lobster asked what he was going to do about it. Then, abruptly turning around, Chun asked the dude not to worry, explaining that this thing wasn't needed for him. Bringing the tip of his claw to the sea catfish's obscene spot, the grinning squid asked the lobster why he was so serious. Why shouldn't he smile? The desperate Guan, realizing what the guy was about to do, started begging him not to do it with his claw. Meanwhile, Chuan, stuck in the rock, can't figure out why everyone has gone so abruptly quiet. Unfortunately, the author went completely insane next. I'm not going to describe what that psychotic squid just did. The only thing I can say is that everyone was genuinely shocked by what they saw. Well, by the way, the sea catfish, judging by his embarrassed look, more than liked it. In tears trying to bitch about this unbearable pain, Chuan decides to use the rotten fish's special skill slime expulsion. Immediately afterward, his whole body began to emit a stinky, slimy slime. Thanks to this, the sea catfish was able to get out of the rock without outside help. Not wanting to linger there, defiled by the claw of his subordinate, Chuan left the scene. Looking after him, the squid realized with annoyance that he would not be able to catch up with this dude. It's a shame he ran away. Originally, the guy wanted to punish him even more severely. The system alerted the young man that the rotten fish had been defeated. As a reward, the basic skill camouflage chameleon was given out. While Chun was contentedly studying the system window, the bound squid and lobster stared dumbfoundedly at the bloody claw he had discarded. I got my rookie award, but I'm still not satisfied. The royal squid suddenly spoke out, smiling eerily. Pointing his tentacle at Guan, the boy yelled to the lobster that his hour had come. Helplessly looking at him, Guan realized that this monster was too cruel. In that case, he only had one option left. Bowing his forehead to the ground, the lobster explained that he had been on the path for half his life and had followed the wrong leader. Looking down at the floor in tears, he asked for a chance to serve the real leader. Not expecting such a strange reaction, the squid stared dumbfoundedly at Guan for a while longer. While the lobster was looking at him in bewilderment, Chun breathed out a sigh of relief. He had just wanted to scare this dude, but he had almost gotten himself in trouble. The guy had said that the lobster shouldn't become his subordinate. The young man could just spare him, but in return, Guan would have to tell everything he knew. The lobster shrieked with joy and told his squid brother that he would help in any way he could. Meanwhile, in Coral City, sitting on his knees in front of the master, a sobbing Chuan earnestly asks for revenge for him. He tells the master that the kid is making him look like a loser. This guy didn't care at all who the boss of the sea catfish was. "Fill up, brat," shouted the leader in fury. "I sent you on a treasure hunt, but you came back empty-handed, and now you've lost to some lowlife outside the city." Staring fearfully at the floor, Chuan told the master that he was too weak, and if he had a pact, things would have ended differently. Laughing, the boss inquired if the catfish wanted to gain dual interaction. After that, grabbing the Underchinen by the tail, the leader agreed to give him this pact. And once Chuan became stronger, it would be up to him to avenge himself. However, the sea catfish must remember one thing: he must kill all the trash that lives outside the city, but without revealing the identity of his boss. When the foreman lowered the rotten fish to the ground, he waved his hand, explaining that he needed privacy now, and therefore it was inconvenient for him to tell all the necessary information for the contract. The leader decided to settle on a contractor. He is a contractor of the city head named Nian Ying, of the Atlantean race. Coincidentally, he is the son-in-law from a wealthy family residing in Coral Q City. His level is almost unknown to almost no one. Approaching Chuan, the man asked the guest to follow him. They were soon in the back room together. Suddenly, Nian noticed an elderly woman quite familiar to him. Madame Kaiyazong is from a wealthy family living in Q Coral City. Nian Nai's mother-in-law, an invincible old woman who scares the sub-Chinese and mocks the sea animals. Her nickname is Mom June. Awkwardly waving her off, the contractor can't figure out what this woman is doing here. At the same second, a juicy slap from his mother-in-law hit the man on the cheek. Glaring angrily at her, the cheek-holding Nian asked why she had hit him. What Mom June said next was literally a review of her son-in-law's ugliness. "Your face is disgusting, and I feel sick every time I see you. Did you earn a single pearl shell when you came into this family? Why are you smiling? Other sons-in-law help their families by catching sea creatures. And you, I just saw Na King's sister-in-law who lives next door. She's going on a turtle ride and asked me why I'm still walking. What can I say to her? I'm just embarrassed." Looking at that creepy bitch, Chuan realizes that he has no business being here. That's sadistic wrong. There's no way he'll sign a contract with her. "Isn't that a new sea beast?" the old woman asked, poking her finger bloodily at the frightened catfish. Without waiting for a reply from her son-in-law, the sadistic woman immediately pounced on Chuan, preparing to torture him to death. After sitting down on his back, Mama June remarks that this beastie is a perfect size, and so she decides to sign a contract with him. While Chuan is screaming hysterically, begging to be let go, Nian tensely closed his eyes to avoid seeing this horror. "Poor catfish. He's unlucky, God bless you. I'm off." When the son-in-law left, the old woman called the maid to her. Cheng Xinyan of the Atlantean race is a maid of the Q family of Coral City and Chun's childhood friend in his past life. Throwing her bag into it, the old woman ordered the maid to carry it home, while her mistress rode this wonderful animal. "Good," stammering, uttered the girl who had fallen to the floor. At this time, on the outskirts of Coral City, a lobster-sitting Chun asks the guys not to see him off, awkwardly looking at him. In their minds, the three squids are conversely glad this scary dude is leaving. After listening to what this lobster had to say, Chun had at least a small idea about this world. Well, first of all, arthropod limbs can regenerate. That's why Guan grew a new claw. Second, Coral City is the center of the marine world, home of the people who live underwater, and the home of the Atlanteans. The Atlanteans look just like humans, but they can breathe underwater. They have a kind of civilization of their own here. The wilderness, on the other hand, is teeming with all sorts of strange or dangerous flora and fauna. The sea dwellers are forced to sign a contract with the Atlanteans. Only then will both sides be able to use the shuang technique. Apparently, this contract is the same as the one demanded by the system. Maybe Chun isn't the only one in this world who possesses the system. What's another shuang technique? While the boy was thinking about it, the lobster informed him that the gates of Coral City were in front of them. It's the outskirts, and Atlanteans often come here to stroll around. After listening to him, the squid remembered that Guan didn't know anything about the system, and so he had no reason to cheat. Chun used to use balls of mud and sand to intimidate it, but now this lobster bows its head and pins its ears to him. All he had to do was say that the guy had poisonous tentacles and promise to give him the antidote if he obeyed. It seems that now the young man must go to the Coral City, become stronger and learn more about the world. Suddenly, Guan stopped, noticing something unexpected. Not far away from them, Madame Kayazong was riding the exhausted Chuan. "Damn, the bad fish found a contractor," screamed the lobster, frightened. Leaning over to him, the squid asked him what he was panicking about. Guan revealed that this old lady is the most famous sadist from Coral City. What she likes most is to capture sea creatures and torture them to death. If they fell into her hands, they would definitely be finished. Awkwardly looking at this madam, Chun asked if such perverts still existed. On the other hand, if there are such people in this world, then why did the guy get reborn as a squid? Did the goddamn goddess just decide to mess with him? While he was thinking about it, the frightened lobster, trembling with fear, said they should run away. If that old woman saw them, she would kill them. In turn, Chun asked him not to worry. The young man had an idea. He immediately applied the ability Flexible Brachial. Squids were mollusks that could deform their bodies. On top of that, using his newly acquired camouflage chameleon skill, which can change skin color and facial expressions, the guy transformed into an Atlantean. Squid managed to use two skills at once. What a genius he is. "Hey, sister-in-law, I haven't seen you in a while. You're getting prettier and prettier." Chun greeted Madame Kayazong while riding a lobster. In a situation like this, it's the hardest thing to behave naturally. And why is that old woman still not talking? Oh, you look beautiful too." Mom June finally replied to him, waving her hand. The old woman herself is trying to figure out who it is. Could it be Na King's younger sister? While the two women are chatting amongst themselves, a surprised Catfish asks Guan if he has managed to find a contractor. Meanwhile, the lobster reminds Chuan that he just left him and ran away. But now he doesn't have to worry about that. Taking his gaze away, Guan realizes that their encounter is not going to lead to anything good. If this fool finds out that there's a squid sitting on his back, he'll definitely get angry. At this moment, Madame Kayajin asks the stranger whose little sister she is. The squid laughs and tries to find the words to answer, but unfortunately, he doesn't know the names of the town's inhabitants at all. And anyway, why did the old woman start pestering him? He's just saying hello, and she's talking to him all of a sudden. Shit, if the guy's recognized by the catfish, it's gonna get ugly. We gotta get out of here. Not understanding what was wrong with the woman, Mom June explained that she had just left the house. She then suggested that her friend go for a walk and let her ride her animal. Such an unexpected suggestion put Chun in a stalemate. What should he do now? Suddenly, having sharpened his senses, Chuan notices something strange. This woman smells so familiar. Thanks to its antennae and sense of smell, Catfish can distinguish odors up to 10 meters away. It smells like squid, mistress. That woman is a sea monster. Chuan immediately shouted, pointing his fin at the old woman. Damn, now you've shown your true colors, you filthy, stinking fish. In the same second, jumping back to a safe distance, the squid assumed its true appearance. Looking at the catfish with hatred, the lobster shrieked indignantly. How could the catfish forget about his old friend? Smiling evilly, Chuan mockingly explained that everyone serves their master, and Guan shouldn't blame him. Ha, it's not true, two wild sea beasts, Madame Kayazon joyfully uttered, clapping her hands in admiration. And by the looks of it, none of them want to leave. The old woman is overjoyed at this unimaginable good fortune. Looking at her doomfully, the lobster once again reminds the squid that this lady treats sea creatures badly, and that if they fall into her hands, they will be unfortunate. Chun in turn remarks that in that case, they will have to fight her. It was worth using the old ways. With a look of horror on his face, Guan wondered what old techniques the guy was talking about. Really? As soon as the lobster decided to run away after realizing what it was about, the squid immediately grabbed it with its tentacles and started swinging it like a bat. Ha, two sea beasts dared to take on too much, Madame Kaizong said confidently, standing on the sea catfish's head. At the same instant, she activated the Shuang Chan art. While the doomed lobster was screaming hysterically, there was an explosion across the street from them. How bright! Is this really the famous art of Shuang Chan? In the same second, a 10th level mermaid man appeared at the site of the explosion. He became bald and stronger. This creature evolved thanks to the combination of an old woman and a catfish, while using the Shuang Chan technique. Main skill: a fist-fighting technique with ultra-high temperature that destroys heaven and earth. Anyone who comes within range of this attack will be boiled immediately. Not realizing where Saitama from AliExpress had come from, Chun yelled in surprise. "Beastie, are you stunned by my strength?" inquired the laughing Onipunch kneading his fists before fighting. "No, I just want to ask something. When using the Shuang Chan technique, does baldness come with it? If so, then I probably won't use it," Chun said, looking at the salesman with disgust. The angry mermaid man, offended by these words, immediately struck without warning, shouting for this lowlife not to dare mock him. Ultra-high temperature fist-fighting techniques. Not understanding where the steam underwater came from, Chun grabbed the lobster and covered himself with it like a living Shiat. In the very next second, this powerful attack reached its goal. Having flown away from such a strong impact for several meters, the lobster and squid landed on the bottom with a clatter. When the guy saw the welded guan, he realized how brutal this fist-fighting technique was. While he was thinking about it, a cheap bottling Saitama had already flown up to him from behind, preparing to strike again. At the same moment, the bald dude unleashed a whole combination of attacks to annihilate his opponent into atoms. Fortunately, Chun was able to bounce off in time and didn't get caught in this meat grinder. After swimming a short distance away, the guy immediately used an inkjet on the enemy. "You're so naive. The same trick won't work twice. Even nailing a mosquito is harder than erasing an entire inked area with one punch." Dazedly looking at his opponent preparing to strike, the squid can't understand how this guy managed to accumulate so much power in such a short period of time. Realizing what he was in for, Chun decided to get out of here. The only thing he needs now is to get to that place. Just get to that place. However, it was already too late. The free package lover had already used the ultra-high temperature fist-fighting technique. A powerful stream of hot steam immediately rushed out from his fist towards Chun. Turning around, the squid realized he had no chance of survival left. At the same second, a devastating steam explosion erupted. Smiling contentedly, the mermaid man remarked that this power was worthy of being his. Suddenly, Madame Kaijin and the sea catfish were separated. Looking at her hands in bewilderment, the old woman couldn't understand how the Shuang Chan technique could deactivate so quickly. It's obvious that her loser brother-in-law sent her a defective animal. The duration of Shuang Chuan's technique depended on both parties, and so, due to Chuan's low level, this ability quickly dissipated. At this moment, when the sea catfish turned his head, he saw something truly frightening. Shit, even rocks crumble in front of such a great Shuang Chan technique. But that's not the point. Why do cooked lobsters smell so good? While Chuan was thinking about it, the old woman had already had time to look around and noticed that one animal had managed to escape. Grabbing the cooked guan by the tail, Madame Kaizong said that this huge lobster would last for a long time, and on top of that, it doesn't even need to be cooked. Then she put the prey on the back of the tired sea catfish and ordered him to hurry home. Unhappily looking at her, Chuan couldn't understand why he could still smell squid for a while yet. Somehow, this was suspicious. Meanwhile, oxygen bubbles floated out next to the dead lobster's body. During the explosion, Chun had managed to hide behind the fried guan and escape. Now he was using the mimic disguise skill and was able to hide by sucking on the lobster's body with his tentacles. After a while, they arrived in Coral City. Is this really the Coral City? It looks majestic. Immediately you get the feeling that this is the center of the entire underwater world. However, there is something unusual about all this. Looks like the rich people have sea animals, but the poor walk around without pets. Could it be that in Atlantis, only the rich can own sea creatures? Could it be that only upper-class people can sign a contract? Suddenly, Chun noticed a line of poor people standing at the window of some strange shop. This place is called Uncle Zhen's Chamber of Commerce. Here everyone can get 10 pearls a month. All you have to do is register. Are there really charitable organizations here too? With a friendly laugh, the man behind the counter gives the joyful girl 10 pearls and asks her to come back next month. At this moment, he notices Madame Kayajin pushing her animal. This person definitely has some sort of dislike for old lady Wrong. Soon, the elderly woman and the sea catfish arrived at the Q family's mansion. As soon as they stepped inside, all the servants saluted the hostess respectfully. After explaining that she was incredibly tired, Madame Kayazong ordered the dark-haired maids to prepare her some oysters to fill her stomach well. Looking at her, Chun realizes that there was no way for him to escape on the way, but he couldn't have imagined that this sadistic woman would bring him to her home. While the guy was thinking about it, he felt as if someone had lifted him up sharply. Abruptly tossing the cooked lobster to the pink-haired maid, the old woman ordered her to take it to the kitchen and then cook it for dinner. All right, that plays right into the squid's hands. He can find a way to escape from the kitchen, and then the young man can explore the Coral City and find himself a contractor. But suddenly he notices a rather familiar face. It's Cheng Xinyan, his childhood friend. How did she get here? Is she reborn too? When the girl decided to take the fried lobster to the kitchen, Madame Kayazong ordered the sea catfish to give her a massage. After arriving in the kitchen, Xinyan placed the lobster on the countertop and started looking for something. While the childhood friend was humming some song, Chun noticed that there was no one else here, and so he was perfectly safe. This indeed girl looks exactly like Cheng Xinyan, but there was no way she would be a maid. And the guy is incredibly curious to ask her and find out how that happened. But as he opens his eyes, he notices a girl in front of him. Looking at the lobster carcass with a ruthless gaze, Xinyan swung her knife, preparing to cut open the belly. Seeing this gruesome picture, the squid screamed in fear and asked her to wait a bit. "A fried lobster can talk," screamed the girl in fear. Hearing this, Chun remarked that only Cheng Xinyan could have such a shock. Deactivating the camouflage chameleon, the guy asked his friend not to worry and remarked that he didn't expect to see her here. As the friendly squid waves his tentacle at her, the girl with knife in hand looks at him perplexed. "Guys, there's a sea beast," Xinyan shouted in panic as she ran away from the bloodthirsty monster. Abruptly pushing back with his tentacles, the young man realized that she didn't recognize him because of his new appearance. "Quiet, it's me, Hua-chun. I became like this after reincarnation," the guy explained to her, tying the girl's body with his tentacles. With a relieved exhale, the squid remarked how nice it was to get to know each other after all. He didn't know why she had come here, but if the young man chose her to be his contractor, it would be the best idea. "Hua-chun," the suddenly embarrassed Chen Xinyan said quietly. Glancing at the guy incredulously, the girl immediately wondered who he was talking about. Holy shit, what did she just say? She doesn't remember him. Meanwhile, in the main palace of Coral City, a tense Nyan is carrying a tray of maggots. Walking over to the table, he set the bowl down with a clatter. Standing up in front of Lord Lun, the man inquired as to how much longer they would have to endure. In response, the beast asked him not to worry. They need to wait for his wound to heal. During that time, Nyan must not let the Q family know about Lun's existence. Also, he must not dare to reveal the contractual relationship with him. It had already been 3 months since Lord Lun had been reborn in this world, yet he still hadn't reached the pinnacle. He used to think it was just a trip between worlds. But after a battle with the owner of the Nanbashu Chamber of Commerce, he realized that he was not the only one who had moved here. The biggest threat in this world is a guy who is also reborn. The wound left by that man is almost healed, and that's a good thing. Moon asks his son-in-law to listen to what he is about to say. Their plan is for the secret to build up their strength. "Let's kill all the competition," the sea beast shouted in rage. This is a level 60th level Lord Crocodile Moon. The person he has contracted with is Nyan Nai. This monster possesses devilish muscles and a death list. Hearing no reaction to his majestic speech, Moon asked his son-in-law what he thought about it. However, after a glance at the spot where Nyan had been standing recently, the crocodile noticed that he was already gone. Scratching the back of his head, the man exited the Lord's chambers and noticed that Brother Moon was always talking some kind of confusion and made him put up with it every day. Taking a grub from the plate brought by his contractor, the crocodile realizes that his son-in-law has been getting more and more unreasonable lately. Loon rarely behaves aggressively, but how dare this dude walk right out from under his nose. Chewing his food unhappily, the Lord remarks that a plate of worms is not enough to satiate him. After all, he is starving. He decides to sneak a peek into the kitchen. Already in the courtyard, the crocodile, looking around warily, moves from wall to wall so that no one will notice him. "So, we're not from this world," came a surprised voice from the kitchen. Standing at the window, Lun immediately realized that he was lucky enough to hear the world travelers talking. While the crocodile sticking his face out of the window listens to what's going on in the kitchen, the squid, waving his tentacles, tells his childhood friend about how they got hit by a truck making faces at her. The guy tells her that he was killed, came into this world, and was reborn as a squid. "Got it?" the young man inquired of the girl, glancing at her hopefully. Laughing, Shinyan remarked that although Chun was a liar, he had made up a rather fantastic story. The squid yelled in surprise, realizing that this stubborn girl didn't understand a single word he said. With frustration, the guy pats the table with his tentacles, trying to think of something to make her believe him. At that moment, the system window flashed up in front of him. A blue window showed the young man the instructions for the Water of Atlantis rebirth system. The first paragraph of the instruction stated that in order to gain supernatural skills, users needed to sign a contract. Next, it was reported that some of the memory of past lives after reincarnation could be sealed. The third article, on the other hand, explained that after signing a contract, the memory could be unlocked. However, there were 250 articles in the manual alone. The angry Chun pointed out that this document was longer than the system contract itself. When the guy scrolled to the bottom, the system asked him if he wanted to create a memory retrieval contract. When the young man agreed, a small scroll of obligation immediately came out of the blue window. Unrolling this scroll in front of Shinyan, the squid asked her to put her hand on the piece of paper. By making a contract with him, maybe she could recover the memory of her past life. But the girl immediately refused. She explained that the Coral City police fought against deception and fraud every day, and even if she looked like a humble girl, it didn't mean that some squid could cheat her. At the same moment, the system warned Chun that according to Article 56 of the system's Terms and Conditions Manual, the contract must be signed voluntarily by both parties. Grudgingly grabbing his head, the boy shouted out, punishing himself for not reading the terms more carefully. While he was resentful, the crocodile lord entered the kitchen, saying a friendly hello to everyone present. Excitedly shifting her gaze from squid to crocodile and back again, the girl asked where a whole gang of crooks had come from. Closing the door behind him, Moon asked them not to be nervous. He explained that he didn't expect to see others like him here, those who had also been reborn. Reborn, like this, is this guy from another world too? Opening the system window in front of him, the crocodile lord explained that although both Atlanteans and sea beasts could use the shuang chan technique with the help of a contract, but only those who had been reborn as sea beasts could use the system. With a surprised look at the crocodile, Shinyan inquired about their glowing things. Gladly looking at her, Chun realized that since she could see it, this girl was indeed a reborn girl. The boy was 100% sure that it was Shinyan, but he still had one question. The young man told the crocodile that it was his childhood friend, and then asked why she didn't remember anything about rebirth from her past life. That's when Lun explained that the memory of some reborns is limited, and he doesn't know the specific reason why. Listening to them, the uncomprehending girl confidently shouted that these two were definitely sick with something. Noticing the phrase some reborn, the squid wondered how many like him there were in this world. Was everyone sent here by a goddess named Nana? That Chun also knew this woman was a pleasant surprise to the crocodile lord. He looked at the boy and smiled grimly. While the squid was trying to understand the reason for Luna's reaction like this, Shinyan standing nearby took a step forward, asking her to stop all of this. "Who is this Nana anyway?" The girl immediately advised the crocodile and squid to hurry up and get out of here, because if they were caught by the old woman, then they would definitely be in trouble. "Careful, stay back," Chun suddenly shouted, extending his tentacles towards his childhood friend. As soon as he grabbed her and pulled her to him, the crocodile lord immediately struck with his sharp claws, tearing the girl's clothes. Not realizing what was happening, Xinyan screamed in fear. Covering the confused girl's boomboxes with his body, Chun explained to her that this crocodile was actually a killer. "Of course I'm an assassin. All reborns are my enemies," Lun angrily muttered, glaring at them eerily. That's when the squid realized that the goddess Nana says the same thing to everyone. She sends people here to a new world where they have to survive and climb to the very top. And if the reincarnated person dies again, the traces of his existence will be erased. Unclenching his fists, the crocodile confirmed the guy's hunch. That's why he can't allow other reborns to evolve. Only he can be at the top of the world. Jumping out in front of his friend, Chun told the Lord that he had misunderstood everything. "You don't have to kill other people if you want to reach the top, do you?" But unfortunately, this guy's convictions were much stronger than the guy suspected. The crocodile only laughed at such a statement, explaining that he wasn't going to wait for the squid to get pumped and cause him trouble. "And that's why you can't live," Lun bloodthirstily shouted, pouncing on the two at the same second. Looking at this kid, Chun noticed that he was quite stubborn. Anything goes into a fight. However, the young man noticed that the crocodile's ribcage was traumatized. That's good for him. At the same instant, the squid used an inkjet in an attempt to blind his opponent. In turn, this cloud of ink was nothing to the Lord. He dispersed it with a wave of his hand, but, suddenly, from nowhere, using his flexible tentacles to speed up, Chun pounced right at him. Flying closer, the guy crashed headfirst into the crocodile's wounded chest. Tensely opening his eyes, the squid asked Xinyan to get out of here as soon as possible and promised that he would detain Lun. "Squid, you," in a concerned voice the girl muttered. At the same moment, the crocodile lord grabbed Chun in his paw. "Bastard, don't you dare touch my wound," Luo shouted angrily, squeezing the squid in his hand with all his might. After that, he threw the guy into the closet, hoping he would die from such a powerful blow. The young man bounced off the surface a few times before the frightened Xinyan caught him and held him against her chest. From the speed at which the squid crashed into her, the girl was knocked off her feet. Looking at the crippled Chun in tears, she asked why he was helping her. After all, Xinyan is just a humble servant girl. Why would such a small beast sacrifice his life to save her? Shuddering in pain, the guy explained that in a past life, he had promised his friend to save her life. Then an erratic chain of memories from their childhood surfaced in the girl's mind. Holding out his hand to his crying friend, little Chun asked her to entrust her life to him. "Who the hell are you? You can't die. Tell me who you are." Bursting into tears, Xinyan shouted. Chun then asked her again if the girl wanted to make a contract with him. When the childhood friend agreed, the system alerted that the other party's resistance had disappeared and the signing conditions had been reached. Hearing this, the young man grinned contentedly. At the same instant, he unfurled a scroll of obligation in his tentacles. As soon as the squid held out the contract to her, the girl put her hand to the bundle, thus signing the contract. "It's done." The conclusion of the contract was successful, and to his regret, Crocodile Lord Lun didn't have time to stop them. The very next second, the system space was entered. The entire surroundings suddenly disappeared, and Xinyan and Chun found themselves alone in an unknown dimension. After looking over his body, the guy realized that in system space, he could return to his original appearance. He looked at the girl and asked her why she was stunned. Then he saw a strange chain on her head. Could it be a seal of some kind? As soon as Chun put his hand near this chain, it immediately dissolved. Suddenly the guy started seeing incomprehensible images in his head. He seems to have found himself in his home world, the one he lived in before he died. "What, Chun?" Xinyan said in surprise after noticing her friend. Waving happily to the girl, Chun told her that he was here. A moment later, however, her friend was at the guy's back, running him through. As the girl runs to the scene, hearing the loud noise of a traffic accident, the young man looked around, realizing that since Xinyan couldn't see him, it meant that he had fallen into her memories. But at that moment, a small truck comes around the corner at breakneck speed. Ha ha, it's time to reincarnate in another world, shouted the joyfully laughing goddess Nana while sitting behind the wheel of the heavyweight. That's right, the goddess was the one who killed Chun's childhood friend. The contract was signed and Xinyan's memories began to return. After a while the girl came to her senses, opened her eyes. Taking her hands in his, the guy pulled his embarrassed friend close and spoke her name. Xinyan, has your memory come back to you? The young man inquired charmingly, looking into her eyes. The next instant he tasted a sweet slap on the cheek from a strong female hand. Identity restored. Appearance is perfect. Deep in her heart, she is a sadist. Cheng Xinyan's memory has been restored. Rubbing his cheek awkwardly, Chun asked if this was the way to greet someone he hadn't seen in a long time. Meanwhile, the angry girl replied that it was his own fault for being the first to die. After that, the guy said that the system had unlocked all of Xinyan's memories for him after being reborn. That was when he noticed that the girl was surprisingly quick to understand the situation. After all, she wasn't that smart. However, a friend advised her not to underestimate her. She used to read books and study to be smart. In turn, looking at her with embarrassment, Chun explained that what she had read isekai manga did not count as learning. Suddenly, the system announced that the contract was coming into effect, and the accumulated rewards would start unlocking. Reward for experience increases. Level 15 is obtained. Speed increase. Reward for destroying sperm whales can now be obtained. Shuang Chan Shu Poseidon Technique Level C. Poseidon. Is this the same trick the catfish and the old woman used before? Great, Xinyan, let's go, Chun said confidently as he prepared for battle. Poseidon, the two men shouted at the same second. When Crocodile Lord Lun saw what appeared in front of him, he was petrified with fear. Contractor of the 15th level. Hua Chun and Cheng Xinyan. Shuang Chan Technique Poseidon's Shu Level C. Cursed King Shai Fang.
Pet the cat.